Chris here with High Seas Cruising, and welcome to today's cruise news. It is Thursday, it is September the 5th, and we have several cruise news stories for you today, and we're going to be starting off in Santorini. Because Santorini, they've put a new rule in place, a new rule to limit cruise passengers to help reduce overcrowding at the dock and just make it a better experience. Now, this limit is strictly just for the dock. Only 500 cruise passengers can be in the cruise dock at any given time. Now, where this comes into play is Santorini is a tender port. So you got to take a tender from the ship over to the island. And when the cruise dock reaches capacity of 500 people, they will stop and slow down the tenders coming ashore. Which means if you're waiting to get off the ship, head and enjoy your port day, you could expect some major delays, especially if there are multiple cruise ships in port. So if you have an upcoming cruise with a stop in Santorini, look, just be prepared. Have your patience, have your understanding, expect delays, especially if you are not on those first couple of shuttles. It is going to take longer for you to get on the island. Now, how about a story of a cruise passenger who got so upset, so disturbed over having to follow the rules involving drink packages that he viciously attacked the waiter in the main dining room. I mean, left him permanently scarred with injuries to his face over this drink package dispute. Now, the story did not specifically say what cruise ship this occurred on. It was a Mediterranean cruise, and a 57-year-old Italian passenger had an all-inclusive drink package. Now, according to reports, he was misusing this drink package. He was buying drinks for other guests. He was buying drinks for people at other tables in the main dining room using his drink package. And members of the waitstaff told him, hey, look, this is not something you're allowed to do. You can't do this. Now, with all-inclusive drink packages, yes, you can get all of the drinks you want, essentially, but they are intended to be used by you. They're not for you to just give away to everybody else. When he was informed of the policy by the waitstaff, he became angry. He became upset. Tensions began to rise. Now, despite being told you can't do this, well, the passenger continued to do it. He continued to order drinks, began giving them to tables around him. He then poured a beer over a waiter not involved in the situation at all, found the waiter that had given him the warning, poured a drink over his head, then picked up a glass and began hitting him repeatedly in the face until the glass finally broke. Now, that cruise passenger was forcibly disembarked in the next port stop in Greece. The waiter was taken down to the medical facility, received medical treatment, and has filed charges against the cruise passenger. But all of this over having to follow the rules. Cruise passenger is told he can't do this, wants to do it anyway. Of course, alcohol is involved, and now we have this type of incident. So yeah, essentially this 57-year-old man has ruined the rest of his life because he is going to be charged over simply not wanting to follow the rules. Next up, we have a policy change for P&O Cruise Lines involving mobility scooters. Now remember, this is only for P&O Cruise Line. And they said this policy change is being made over safety concerns and in the event of an emergency allows everybody on a mobility scooter to receive any help they may need. However, those that use mobility scooters may find this policy a little bit restrictive. Now, all booked guests, they were emailed a notification of the policy change from P&O Cruise Lines. Recently, we've updated our mobility scooter policy to include all powered mobility devices. Our updated policy requires any guest who brings a powered mobility device on board to be booked into a fully accessible cabin or selected suite or mini suite. Now, what this means is any passengers using a powered wheelchair, a mobility scooter, something like that, they have to be booked in certain cabins only. And if they are booked in standard cabins that don't meet the criteria, they could be denied boarding or forced to make changes to their travel plan. Now, according to P&O, fully accessible cabins can be deluxe balcony cabins, suites, balcony cabins, sea views, outside cabins, and other cabin types all depending on which P&O ship they are sailing on. Now, this policy only applies to powered mobility devices. So if you have a regular push wheelchair, for an example, that can be folded and put out of the way inside the cabin, the policy does not apply to that. So the simplest version of this is the room has to be big enough to get the powered mobility device inside the room and be able to be stored out of the way, essentially, so that in event of an emergency, crew members can get into the cabin and help the passenger, and say the scooter is not blocking the doorway or blocking the passage into the cabin. Now, guests sailing on P&O do have to complete the mobility device questionnaire. They have to have it submitted 14 days prior to embarkation. So if you have a P&O cruise, you got one coming up, you are concerned that this policy could affect you in some way, that maybe you are not booked into what they call a fully accessible cabin, definitely reach out to P&O Cruise Lines. Let them know what you're going to be using, what you're going to be bringing on board. Make sure that your stateroom meets those qualifications. That way nothing slips through the crack. You get to the cruise port ready to embark on your cruise vacation, only to find out that this policy stops you from boarding because you are not booked in the correct stateroom. Now, yesterday we talked about the new cruise fees for passengers visiting Cozumel, Mexico and Costa Maya, a $5 increase. Well, today we're going to talk about New Zealand, because New Zealand also is increasing the price per cruise passenger to visit that country. However, unlike Cozumel, which sees an increase in cruise passengers year after year, New Zealand, well, they're heading in the other direction. They currently are projected to have a 22% decline in tourism over the next coming year. And this decline is due to high prices and very complex regulations for cruise ships that want to visit New Zealand. New Zealand is one of the most expensive places for cruise ships to visit. Essentially, they make no profit when they go to New Zealand. They make very, very little. It's very expensive. And because of that, the cruise lines have reduced the number of cruises that they even send to New Zealand. And before they even put this new fee into place, they were already expected to lose over $157 million over the 2024-2025 season. So what does New Zealand do to make up these losses, to entice cruise ships and tourism in their country? Well, they triple the price for a cruise passenger to come and visit. So beginning October the 1st, 2024, the International Visitor and Conservation Levy will be going up. Currently it is $35 New Zealand. They are going to be raising that up to $100 New Zealand, which in US dollars and in US money, that's $62.20 to visit New Zealand on board a cruise ship. Now, the government says, well, you know what? This fee increase, well, it keeps us competitive globally. And they are confident that New Zealand will continue to attract visitors with tourism and cruises, even with this higher price. But is that really the case? Cruise lines are already saying it is one of the most expensive places in the world to visit. They're already talking about high fees and complex regulations. They've already reduced the number of cruise ships that are visiting the country. New Zealand is already expected to lose $157 million in tourism money. So is tripling the cost for a cruise passenger to go visit New Zealand really going to keep them competitive globally? Is that really going to bring more cruise ships and more cruise passengers to that country? Or are we going to see a further reduction from the cruise lines? Are we going to see the cruise lines looking for other ports, other locations, other destinations to take cruise passengers that have lower prices? Remember, at the end of the day, cruise lines are business. They are there to make money. And if they can't make money by going to cruise ports, well, eventually, they're probably just going to stop going. All right, and that is going to be our video for today. If you've enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you haven't done so yet, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It is free to do so. Helps our channel grow. Let you know anytime we put out a new video. Hope everyone out there is having a really great day. And like always, we will see you out on the high seas.